At 5 a.m. in New York, February 27, 2026, the sky is saturated with water. The Sun is at 8 degrees Pisces, joined by Mercury, Venus, and the North Node, also in Pisces. The Moon is in Cancer at 16 degrees, close to Jupiter and Mars in the same sign. Across the zodiac, Neptune has just stepped into Aries at 0 degrees, with Saturn and Chiron also in early Aries. This is not a loud sky. It is not chaotic or volatile. It is emotionally dense, yes, but also deliberate. When Pisces and Cancer dominate the chart like this, the background tone of the day becomes softer, more receptive, more internally aware. It can feel like waking up into air that doesn't quite move out of your way, a day where the emotional atmosphere presses just enough on your skin to make you pay attention. Water energy heightens sensitivity. It slows the tempo. It draws attention inward. You may not be able to explain why you feel different this morning, but you might notice you are more reflective, more tuned in to subtle shifts in yourself and others. Thoughts blend with feelings. Logic blends with intuition. The boundaries between what you think and what you feel become more porous. At the same time, Neptune at 0 degrees Aries introduces something new. Aries is about initiation, about agency, about the courage to move. Saturn and Chiron in Aries suggest that this movement is not impulsive, it is measured. It is about learning how to take yourself seriously in a more mature way. So the emotional depth of today is not here to overwhelm you. It is here to show you something about how you handle pressure. Not how you eliminate it, not how you escape it, but how you respond when it lands. There is a strong emotional current running underneath the day, and within that current, there is a subtle invitation. An invitation to grow up inside your feelings rather than around them. When so much of the sky is held by Pisces and Cancer, the first place you feel the shift is not in your thoughts, but in your body. These signs don't express themselves through big declarations or dramatic impulses. They speak through sensation, subtle, early signals that something inside you is changing its rhythm. You might wake up with a heaviness in your chest that wasn't there yesterday. Not fear, just a weight that asks to be noticed. Or a soft tightness across your shoulders, the kind that appears when you've been bracing for something without realizing it. The stomach may feel tender, as if your emotions are sitting closer to the surface than usual. Even the way you breathe may feel different, shorter at first, then stretching out only when you consciously exhale. Pisces energy blurs edges, which means internal experiences don't stay neatly separated. A passing worry might echo longer. A warm memory might linger in your body as a physical warmth. Cancer, meanwhile, heightens the instinct to protect. The body becomes a sensor, reacting to tone, temperature, eye contact, silence. A slight change in someone's voice can land like a full message. A look from a coworker can shift your posture before you even think about it. You might find yourself answering a text quickly, just to ease a sudden tension in your ribs. You might over-explain something because your nervous system is trying to avoid misunderstanding. You might change your tone mid-sentence because you sense the other person withdrawing. None of these reactions are signs of weakness. They are adaptive patterns, the body trying to maintain emotional safety in real time. Mars in Cancer intensifies this. Mars usually drives direct action, but in Cancer it initiates through emotion. You don't just think a response, you feel it first. The body reacts before the mind frames the story. A slight clench in the jaw when you read an email that feels too demanding. A pull in your stomach when someone asks for your energy and you're already stretched thin. Even a wave of tenderness when you pass by something familiar, a photo on your fridge, a piece of clothing, a quiet corner of your home. With Jupiter so close to the Moon today, sensations may feel amplified. What is small becomes more noticeable. A sigh becomes a release. A knot in your throat becomes a message. A moment of comfort expands into full-body ease. It doesn't mean emotions are big. It means the body is finally loud enough for you to hear what it has been trying to say. And this is where the earliest shift happens. Before any decision, before any conversation, before any outward reaction. The body names the experience first. If you pay attention to these signals, the breath, the tension, the softening, you'll begin to understand how you're responding to pressure long before the mind forms words around it. In daily life, this emotional landscape shows up not as dramatic moments, but as small shifts that ripple through ordinary routines. You might begin the day already carrying something, a lingering tension from a conversation you never finished, a quiet worry about work, or simply the fatigue that comes from holding yourself together for too long. With the Moon, Jupiter, and Mars all in Cancer, these subtle emotional weights can feel a little heavier, a little closer to the front of your awareness. You may move through your morning rituals differently. Brewing coffee might feel slower, almost meditative. A familiar playlist may land more deeply than usual, each song echoing your internal mood. Even checking your inbox can feel more personal, as if every message carries emotional tone rather than just information. This is Cancer's touch, the blending of the practical with the emotional, the everyday moment infused with feeling. At work, the shift becomes even more noticeable. Tasks that normally feel neutral might carry a quiet emotional charge. A request from a coworker may trigger an immediate sense of pressure in your shoulders. A meeting invite might evoke a protective bracing before you even know why. The Pisces planets soften your cognitive boundaries, making you more intuitive and perceptive, but also more sensitive to unspoken dynamics. You may pick up on the emotional climate of a room faster than you process its actual content. Communication also takes on a different tone. You might find yourself replying quickly, not out of urgency, but out of a desire to maintain harmony. You may edit a message several times, trying to avoid misunderstanding. You might hesitate to bring up a need because the possibility of conflict feels heavier today. The emotional body is doing quiet negotiations in the background, trying to protect your sense of safety. In relationships, both personal and professional, this can create moments of unexpected clarity. You may notice where you've been over-functioning, giving too much energy, smoothing too many edges, absorbing too much tension that isn't yours. You may also notice where small acts of care nourish you more than usual. Someone remembering your preference, a friend checking in without needing anything, a colleague offering support without making it complicated. And woven through all of this is a subtle internal question rising from Neptune's entry into Aries. Do I still want to respond to pressure this way? Not as a dramatic shift, not as a declaration, but as a quiet wondering. As the day progresses, this question might show up in small decisions, choosing to pause before reacting, letting a message sit for a moment, or allowing yourself to take a breath before saying yes. This is the beginning of the shift. Not in the big moments, but in the everyday spaces where you feel your patterns most clearly. Here in the rhythm of your normal life, the day's energy asks you to notice. Where am I acting from old instinct? And where am I ready for something different? The central pattern of today is the meeting point between emotional depth and emotional behavior, the moment when you realize not just what you feel, but how you tend to respond when those feelings rise under pressure. This is the texture of a Cancer moon, amplified by Jupiter and colored by Mars. You are not simply experiencing emotion, you are experiencing your patterns around emotion. Mars in Cancer makes reactions feel personal. A small comment can land like criticism. A delay can feel like rejection. A misunderstanding can stir defensiveness before you've had time to breathe. These aren't overreactions. They're reflexes carved from years of protecting yourself. Today doesn't expose them to shame, it exposes them to light, so you can finally see the architecture of what you've been carrying. Morning may feel soft and internal, as if you're moving inside a quiet, emotional fog. You might start the day slowly, sensing more than thinking. By midday, the tone can shift. Triggers don't need to be big. A co-worker's tone, a friend's silence, a decision you've been postponing. Cancer energy responds quickly when safety feels uncertain, and Jupiter magnifies the sensation, making the emotional signal louder than the situation itself. Then, as Pisces planets soften your inner boundaries, reflection slips in. You may catch yourself wondering why something so small stirred you so deeply. Or you may feel a pull to withdraw for a moment, into another room, into your car, into a short walk, just to recalibrate. Pisces dissolves resistance. It makes it easier to see the feeling behind the reaction, the need behind the instinct. By evening, the pattern comes into full view. Sensitivity isn't the issue. The pattern is the instinctive movement you make after the feeling arrives. The quick apology, the automatic yes, the attempt to smooth things over, the retreat into silence, the urge to fix something that may not even be yours to repair. Today's sky doesn't ask you to change the pattern immediately. It asks you to recognize it, to name that tiny space between sensation and reaction, to notice the quiet moment when pressure rises and your body begins to move on its own. That recognition is the pattern of the day, a growing awareness of the mechanics behind your emotional responses. Not in a dramatic awakening sense, but in a grounded, human way. The kind of awareness that shifts you from operating unconsciously to choosing with more clarity. The question that guides this pattern is simple but profound. What am I protecting? When we look more deeply into today's astrology, the pattern becomes clearer, not because the planets dictate your behavior, but because they illuminate the terrain you're walking across internally. The strong Pisces-Cancer emphasis creates a landscape where emotions surface easily, and the new Aries energy introduces the first spark of agency within that emotional field. It's a day shaped by both softness and subtle momentum. The Moon, Jupiter and Mars gathering in Cancer intensify your emotional reception. The Moon governs your felt experience, Jupiter expands whatever it touches, and Mars activates it. This trio doesn't create chaos, it creates awareness. It makes your emotional responses easier to notice. A tightening in your jaw comes sooner. The urge to retreat or overfunction shows up faster. A moment of tenderness spreads more easily through your whole body. This is Cancer speaking through instinct and memory, revealing your pressure points before you even think about them. Then there is Pisces, holding the Sun, Mercury, Venus and the North Node. Pisces dissolves boundaries and turns your focus inward. You process through feeling rather than logic, sensing the emotional tone of a situation before registering the details. Conversations feel layered. Silence feels meaningful. Even simple interactions can feel like they carry subtext. This is why clarity feels harder to force today. The energy doesn't support hard lines or sharp conclusions. It supports noticing, absorbing, softening. And then, at the edge of all this water, something distinctly different. Neptune at 0 degrees Aries. For years, Neptune moving through Pisces has dissolved identities, roles, and old emotional patterns. Now in Aries, the energy begins leaning toward initiative. Intuition wants motion. A feeling wants a response. It's subtle, more like a quiet nudge than a push, but it marks the beginning of a long cycle where your inner life will ask for more agency. Saturn and Chiron in Aries reinforce this shift. Saturn provides structure and responsibility. Chiron brings awareness to old wounds around asserting yourself. Together, they frame today's emotional pattern as a learning moment rather than a crisis. You're not being asked to act boldly. You're being invited to see where your instinctive reactions come from and where a more grounded response might be possible. Pluto in Aquarius adds one more layer, the collective theme of authenticity. Many people are questioning old roles, old identities, and old ways of belonging. This can heighten your sensitivity to relational pressure, how much you give, how much you hold back, how much you compromise. These realizations aren't random. They arise because the sky is wired for reflection and subtle recalibration. So the pattern of the day, feeling deeply while becoming aware of how you respond to pressure, comes directly from this blend. Water that reveals, fire that initiates, air that questions, and earth, through Virgo's points, that grounds. You're not being asked to override your emotions. You're being shown how they move through you, where they tighten, where they lead, and where they create reactions that may no longer feel aligned. Astrology doesn't cause your experience, it contextualizes it. And today's context makes one thing very clear. Your emotional responses are not flaws or failures. They are signals, magnified so you can finally hear them. There's a familiar story many people carry, often without questioning it. If I'm sensitive, it means I'm fragile. If I react quickly, it means I'm failing. If pressure affects me, it means I'm not strong enough. Under today's sky, that narrative becomes easier to see for what it is, an old frame that no longer fits the person you are becoming. Pisces and Cancer energy can make you feel like you're too much, because everything lands more vividly. But what if today's sensitivity isn't a problem to fix, but a form of intelligence you've been overlooking? What if your body is not betraying you when it tightens under pressure, but alerting you to something important, something that used to be invisible under the speed of your life? Many people assume emotional reactions reveal a lack of control. But when you look closely at your experience today, another truth emerges. The reaction itself has never been the issue. What trips you is the speed, the way your body moves before your awareness catches up. And in that split-second gap, you forget something crucial. The reaction isn't random. It's guarding an old truth you haven't looked at in a while. This is where the new Aries influence quietly shifts the frame. Aries doesn't ask you to suppress your feelings. It asks you to inhabit them with more presence. To stand inside your sensitivity rather than shrink away from it. To sense the first flicker of pressure not as a threat, but as the moment before choice. There is a profound difference between being overwhelmed by your emotions and being aware of them as they move. Today leans toward the latter. The old internal voice that says, "Why am I like this?" can soften into a new one. What is this moment showing me? You're not losing composure, you're gaining clarity. You're not unraveling, you're becoming more honest with yourself. The chosen one style framing from earlier spiritual content often suggested that only certain people felt deeply or saw deeply. But today's energy reminds you of something much more grounded. Depth isn't rare. What is rare is the willingness to understand your depth without dramatizing it or judging it. The real shift today is not about transcending your emotional patterns. It's about recognizing that you have grown enough to witness them without being swallowed by them. Strength isn't the absence of reaction. Strength is the moment you notice the reaction and realize you're not defined by it. This is the reframing. You're not too sensitive. You're simply becoming more aware. You're not overreacting. You're learning where your limits actually are. And the pressure you feel today is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that your inner world is asking for a different kind of response, one that aligns with who you are now, not the patterns you built to survive earlier versions of your life. Moving through a day like this becomes gentler when you stop trying to fix the emotional weather and instead work with it. The sky isn't asking for mastery, detachment, or perfect regulation. It's asking for presence. The kind of presence that notices the first signs of pressure without immediately bracing against them. When water dominates the chart, grounding doesn't come from suppressing your feelings, but from making space for them in a way that doesn't overwhelm your system. One of the most supportive things you can do today is to give yourself permission to slow the pace by even a few seconds. A breath before replying, a pause before saying yes, a moment of noticing where your shoulders are sitting. These tiny adjustments create just enough room for your nervous system to settle. Under Pisces and Cancer skies, clarity isn't won by force. It emerges when your internal tempo finally drops. Practical grounding also matters more than usual. With Fortune and Vertex in Virgo, the body finds regulation through small, simple tasks. Washing a few dishes, wiping one counter, reorganizing a small corner of your space, not as productivity goals, but as physical anchors. These gestures remind your body that it is safe, that it is capable of completing something, that it can create pockets of order even when emotions feel fluid. Connection helps too, but only the gentle kind. You may find comfort in sending a short message to someone who feels grounding for you, or in being around someone whose presence doesn't demand performance. Even a short conversation where you don't have to manage or explain yourself can reset your system. Water signs crave honest, quiet connection, not intensity, not deep processing, just the sense that you don't have to hold everything alone. If a moment of irritation or defensiveness rises, treat it like information rather than a flaw. Ask yourself softly, what part of me is reacting right now? You don't need an answer. The question itself pulls you out of autopilot and lets you meet the moment with more agency. This is Aries' contribution today, the small spark of choice inside the wave. As the day moves toward evening, your energy may feel thinner. Instead of pushing against that, consider honoring it. Lower the lights. Move more slowly. Let your body exhale fully. Emotional processing is quiet work, but it is work. Offering your system softness at the end of the day isn't indulgence, it's integration. Nothing today requires perfection. What the sky supports is honesty. Noticing where pressure lands in your body, noticing how you instinctively respond, and noticing the small opportunities to choose differently. These aren't grand spiritual steps. They're subtle shifts that make the day feel less like something to endure and more like something you can move through with steadiness. As the day winds down, the emotional current begins to settle. The Pisces-Cancer tone softens into something quieter, more reflective, almost like the exhale after a long internal conversation. Nothing dramatic needs to rise here. In fact, the quiet is the medicine, the kind that only works when you stop trying to turn the moment into more than it is. This evening is less about figuring anything out, and more about allowing the day to land gently in your body. You may notice small realizations drifting in, not as breakthroughs, but as soft understandings. A clearer sense of where pressure tends to tighten your chest, a glimpse of how quickly you apologize or retreat or overextend, or perhaps a moment where you realize you responded with slightly more clarity, slightly more patience, slightly more honesty than usual. These micro shifts matter. Under a sky like today's, subtle is significant. If you want to close the day with a simple practice, let it be something that helps your system unwind naturally. Lower the lights. Stretch your arms or legs just enough to feel your body lengthen. Sit quietly for a minute and feel where your breath lands without changing it. Let your awareness settle back into your physical space, the objects around you, the warmth of a blanket, the steadiness of your own heartbeat. This is how the water energy integrates, through softness, slowness, and the kind of presence that doesn't demand anything from you. There is no need to predict what tomorrow will bring, no need to hold yourself to some new standard. Today was simply an invitation to notice, to recognize how you respond to pressure, how your body speaks before your mind catches up, and how your emotional patterns reveal both your tenderness and your strength. If this reflection supported you, you're welcome to stay connected. Listen again when you need grounding, or share the video with someone who might understand this kind of day. But even without any next step, what you've already noticed is enough. Tonight, let the energy taper off gently, like a tide pulling back into itself, leaving you just a little more aware, a little more steady, and a little more at home inside your own experience.